Hey guys, welcome back to Reserved Investments and thank you for joining me. Please pardon my appearance. I am overtly tired at present time. I am recording this video at 1:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I do want to get through this subject matter though, because I think it's important. You know, one of the flaws that I see in a lot of the starry-eyed speculators that are coming into not only the antiques and collectibles trade, but also the financial markets in the year 2021 is that they lack the ability to define the differences between a bull market, a bear market, and a speculative market. So in this video, what I am going to do is I'm going to start out by defining what exactly is the definition of a bull market, what exactly is the definition of a bear market, how they differ, and then I'm going to give examples utilizing the antiques and collectibles trade as the primary subject source to tell you what markets I think right now are in a bull market versus that of a bear market. And then I'm going to define the definition of a speculative market, also known as a speculative euphoria and or a speculative bubble. Obviously, if you want a primary example of what a speculative bubble was in the antiques and collectibles trade that occurred in the 1990s, Beanie Babies would fit in that category perfectly. So we're going to start by defining that of a bull versus a bear market. And this can apply to not only the antiques and collectibles trade, but obviously to financial assets, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs, to even alternate asset classes like real estate, cryptocurrency, and or gold and silver. So a bull market is a sustained increase in the price of an asset or commodity over a given period of time. Prices for any asset or commodity fluctuate constantly. When they appreciate rapidly over time, the condition can be called a bull market, while a sustained decline in prices is called a bear market. Unlike a bear market, which is generally considered to be a 20% loss from a peak that lasts for 2 months or more, there is no numerical measure for a bull market. Now, I already know the first question you guys want me to answer. Sean, what's the definition or what markets do you see meeting the definition of that of a bull market in the antiques and collectibles trade? And can you also give us an example of a bear market? And the answer is yes to both. If we're going to define a bull market in the antiques and collectibles trade as of the filming of this video in November 2021, a prime example would be the rare coin and currency market. That particular market goes in market cycles. If you study the idiosyncrasies of the rare coin collecting marketplace, you will see that market is a sophisticated market that is within the antique side of the equation. As such, markets on the antique side of the equation, usually, not always, there are exceptions to every rule, and an antique market can die out just like a pop culture market can. But overall, markets on the antique side of the equation are more cyclical than that of pop culture collectibles, especially over the long term. So if you want an example of a market that is right now in a bull market, it would be the rare coin and currency marketplace. The last bull market that we had in rare coins occurred back in 2007, right before the financial crisis. Now, an example of a bear market in the overall antiques and collectibles trade. Let me comment on this a little bit. If you look right now in November of 2021, if you start researching the price of certain pieces of Tiffany glass, of other rare antique glass and pottery, you're going to see that over the last few years, that market hasn't been as strong as it used to be. In fact, a lot of prices are down 20% or more across the board in that market. Now, that doesn't mean the market's going to go to zero. It doesn't mean that market is going to bottom out or zero out. But what it does mean is when we analyze that market from this perspective, that market would be considered in a bear market at present time. Now, what's interesting is there's a lot of people that think eventually over the next couple of years or even over the next couple of decades, that market is going to come back in vogue. Because remember, when we talk about antique glass, when we talk about Tiffany glass, when we talk about antique pottery, that market, again, is also on the antique side of the equation. And as a result, those markets go in cycles. Now, let's talk about a speculative bubble, also known as a speculative market and or a speculative euphoria. A speculative bubble is a related but separate phenomenon from that of a bull market. With a bubble, a single asset and or commodity or group of assets rapidly gain in price to a point that far outstrips the value of the underlying asset. Bubbles are driven by exaggerated and unrealistic expectations of continued price appreciation. Gains pull in more investors who fear missing out, FOMO, of the opportunity to participate in the asset's appreciation, driving more further price increases, with buyers far outnumbering sellers. You know, it's very interesting. If you go back and you study the Beanie Baby bubble that occurred in the 1990s, when prices were accelerating, nobody wanted to sell into the open market, but everybody wanted to buy. When prices were dropping, nobody wanted to buy and everybody wanted to sell. This is why I always tell you guys, unsophisticated speculators invest in reverse. They do not know what they are doing. Now, going back to the definition, once the buying stops, confidence rapidly evaporates and prices crash until the value of the asset returns to the current equilibrium price. Now, this is very important because there are a lot of unsophisticated speculators coming in to the antiques and collectibles trade that do not know the definitions of a bull market, a bear market, and a speculative market. And more importantly, they mix up how they interpret a bull market versus that of a speculative market. So I'm going to leave this with an open-ended question for you guys to ponder. In the year 2021, are graded video games in a bull market or are they in a speculative market? I guarantee you that sophisticated investors know the answer to that. The question is, do the starry-eyed speculators know the answer to that question? Thank you for watching and have a great night.